Shalom Aleichem. This topic is a little more of a dispute than I realized. They, God willing, we're going to be dividing this into a two-part series. I realized that Rav Ovadia and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadikim L'Rocha, had a dispute about Hadassa and Karem. I know there are similar disputes about when to read the Megillah in Ramot, when to read the Megillah in Vaseret, and what I would like to do is discuss the foundations of the sugya and learn it from the ground up. End the day with some suggestions about what might be some of the conceptual issues, and then, God willing, next week really focus on the practical halachic disputes that appear in some of the shilos and shuvos about this topic. Now, Purim and Shoshan Purim, the 14th and the 15th of Adar, so they appear in Megillah Esther itself. The Psukim tell us, "Vayudim asher b'Shushan nikalu b'shlosha asar bo u'v'arba'asar bo." On the 13th and in the 14th, the Jews in Shushan gathered together. V'noach b'chamisha asar bo, and they rested from the war on the 15th. V'asu oto yom mishta v'simcha, and they made it a day of festivity and joy. Now, the pasuk says, "Al ken hayudim aprazim," the Jews that are living in the unwalled cities, hayoshvim b'arei prazot, the open Jews who are living in the open cities, osim et yom 14 lechodesh Adar, simcha mishtav yom tov u'mishloach manot yisrael. They make the 14th a day of Adar, a day of joy and festivity and Yom Tov, and Mishloach Monos Ishmeo, sending presents. Eventually, by the way, Mordechai is going to, when the final takana is made, it's altered. And then the final takana said, "Vayichto Mordechai et advarim ha'ela." Mordechai wrote these things. "Vayishlach sfarim al kol Yehudim asher b'chol medinot hamelech Achashverosh." He sent missives to all of the Jews in all of the provinces, all of the is the word satraps of the king of Achashverosh, close, far, לקיים עליהם להיות עושים את יום 14 לחודש אדר ואת יום 15 בכל שנה ושנה, that they should make the 14th and the 15th every year, כימים אשר נחו בהם היהודים מאויביהם, like the days that the Jews rested from their enemies, והחודש אשר נפח להם מהגון לשמחה, the month which transformed from sadness to joy, me'evel Yom Tov, from mourning to a Yom Tov, la'asot oto yemei mishteh v'simcha, to make them days of festivity and joy. That's the way they originally made it also. Mishloach manot ish l'reo, they also made that. Matanot levyonim, but Mordechai added matanot levyonim, and the Yom Tov itself was not made, meaning it was not made into a Yom Tov. It was, they went from Evel li Yom Tov, but still those days are Mishteh, Simcha, Mishloach Manot, and Matanot Levyonim. Kimu v'kiblu hayudim alehem ve'al zaram al kol hanilvim alehem. The Jews accepted on themselves, and all those who join them, and their descendants, and all those who join up with them. Apparently, that's converts. V'lo yavor, and they should not go against this. To do these 2 days every year, as they are written and as they are to be done. These days are remembered and are done in every generation. Mishpacha, mishpacha, family by family, medina, medina, province by province, or perhaps city-state by city-state, unclear. Ve'ir va'ir, city by city. It will never forget Purim. Now, so we already have that they rested on Shushan on the 15th, and we already have that the 2 days, the 14th and the 15th, are done. Now, the Gemara goes through a process to derive that the reading of the Megillah on the in the walled cities is on the 15th. That is not crystal clear from the Megillah. The Mishnah tells us, and this is Megillah Nikreit be'achadasar, b'shneim-asar, b'shlosh-asar, b'arba-asar, b'chamisha-asar. Already from the Gemara we know that these other dates, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, and even the 11th, the 12th, and even the 13th are not days when we read the Megillah. We only read it on Be'arbasar, B'chamisha-asar. Today we only read it on the 14th and 15th, but the Gemara represents either an earlier stage or a different opinion. Lo pachot v'liyoter, not no less and no more. Krakima mukifim choma mimoti Yoshua ben Nun. Those big cities that are surrounded with a wall from the days of Yoshua ben Nun, read on the 15th. Kfarim v'ayarot gedolot, the villages and big cities, meaning cities without a wall, korim b'arbasa, they read on the 14th. Ela she'akfarim makdimim liyom haknisa. But the kfarim, the villages, so they read read earlier, the day when they go in, the Yom HaKnisa, the day when they go into the city. Okay, we won't dwell on that part, but the Gemara searches for the source for doing exactly what we do. What does the Gemara say? Krakima mukafim choma mimot Yoshua ben Nun. Cities that are surrounded by a wall from the days of Yoshua, korim b'chamisha, they read on the 15th. Minani Mili, what's the source for this? Amar Rava de Amar Kra, al kena yudima prazima yeshvim b'area prazot. So the Yudima Prazim, they do the 14th. Let's just find that again. They make the 14th. Now, interestingly, it doesn't say that the Jews in the walled cities did it on the 15th. It just tells us that the Jews in the unwalled cities did it on the 14th. So the Gemara reasons, we know they're 2 days. And by process of elimination, if the 14th is taken by the open cities, so apparently the 15th is taken by the walled cities. Okay, that seemed to be a great assumption. However, the Gemara says, where's your assumption? Maybe the unwalled cities read on the 14th, and the walled cities don't read at all. And then the Gemara says, V'lav Yisrael, wait a second, they're not Jewish? Ve'od, be'hodav kush ksiv. Doesn't it say that from hodav ad kush? Now, this is a challenge to figure out, like, what was the Havamina? What did they? What was the Gemara thinking? The Gemara, as a rule, does not throw out straw man approaches. So perhaps the Gemara was thinking maybe the walled cities, maybe their experience of the victory was different. A walled city has protection. On the other hand, weren't there non-Jews in the walled cities? So it is a little bit of a difficulty misvara. On the other hand, what does the pasuk say? So the Gemara rejects that, and then says, "Ve'ema prazim b'arbesar mukafim b'arbesa uva chamesar." Wait a second. Why are you so sure that? Well, since the prazim are on the 14th, So therefore, the Mukafim are on the 15th. Maybe they do it on the 14th and the 15th. Says the Gemara, answers the Gemara, Kirichtiv, like it's written, Liot osim et yom arba'asar lechodesh adar, ve'et yom ha-chamashasar bo, v'chol shana v'shana. Sorry, just a minute. Sorry, that was a shot mistake. The pasuk says they should do the 14th and the 15th. So then the Gemara says, "Iyavakasav es yom arba'a asar v'chamisha asar kirakamart." You would have been right if it said to do the 14th and the 15th. Hashtag ichsiv es yom arba'a asar ve'es yom achamisha asar. It has those S's there. Et. Ata et upasik. The word et creates a barrier. Again, a seemingly extra word. Hani barbasar v'hani b'chamishasar. That clarifies that these are done on the 14th and these are done on the 15th. It is not but each one respectively. Okay. Ve'ema prazim bar beisar mukafin iboy bar beisar iboy b'chamesar. Wait a second. Maybe the fact that they have both days doesn't mean they have to do it on both days, but maybe like we said, we rejected that, but maybe it means they have their choice of the 14th or the 15th. Amar Kran, this is the first page of Gemara Megilla. Amar Kran bizmanehem. Zman al shel zeh, lo zman al shel zeh. The Torah says their times, meaning the simple understanding is their respective times. And there was more than one time. There was one time and there was another time. So the Prazim do the 14th and the Mukafim do the 15th. Then the Gemara says, wait a second, maybe they should do it on the 13th. Once it doesn't say, so why are you so sure? Kishushan. Like Shushan. Now, on the 15th is when the war, when they rested from the war in Shushan. So that's our model of a walled city. Ashka Chanasiya, Zachir Min Island. We have, it says Liot Osim. So who says that applies to Megillah also? Maybe it's just the Maisa HaMitzvahs, the Mishlach Manos and the Matanos Avyonim. Says the Gemara, Merkra, the Pasuk says, V'hayamim ha'ela nizkarim v'nasim. They are remembered, which refers to the Megillah, v'nasim, and they're done, which refers to the practical mitzvahs. Okay. So at the end of the day, our question is, how do we know that the walled cities read on the 15th? Answer, it says that the unwalled cities read on the 14th. And we know that in Shushan, they rested on the 15th. And the pasuk makes it clear that you read either on the 14th or the 15th, but not both, and that it's not and it's also not an option to read on this day or on that day, because the pasuk said Liotosim et Yom Chamish Arbasar ve'et Yom Chamishasar. So we know and we know that the day that you read it in the walled cities is not the same as the Prazim because it's Zmanehem, Zmano Shozeh lo Zmano Shozeh. So that's the Chochmat HaKatuv, the derivation wisdom of Chazal used to prove that the Mukafin are read on the 15th. Okay. Now, the obvious question is asked by the Gemara. The whole thing is the walled cities. So why do we throw in this Yoshua ben Nun part? So the Gemara deals with that directly. The Gemara says, Masisid Loki Aitana, our Mishnah is not like that Tana. Which Tana? The Tanya, Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha Omer, Krachima Mukafim Choma Mimot Yoshua, Mimot Achashverosh, Korim Chamishasar. Whoa. He holds that the way to determine which cities read is the ones from the time of Achashverosh. My time of Rabbi Shimon Korcha, what's his reasoning? Ki Shushan, like Shushan. Ma Shushan Mukafet Choma Mimot Achashverosh, Vikorim B'Chamishasar. Just like it was a walled city from the days of Achashverosh, and you read on the 15th, Av Kol Shemukafet Choma Mimot Achashverosh, Korim B'Chamisha. The same thing goes for all those that were walled from the times of Achashverosh. Okay, so Rabbi Shimon Korcha has a very compelling position, and actually the burden of proof is on us now. So says the Gemara, but Tana they done my Taima. What's the reasoning behind our Tana? Yalif Prazi. He learns a Gezerah Shava based on the root Pei Reish Zayin and the word Pei Reish Zayin, where it says Alkena Yadim Ksiv Hacha Alkena Yadim Aprazim. It says here, meaning in Megillah Esther, that it's the Jews in the Prazim Jews. Ksiv Hazim, and it says there by the conquering the land of Israel, Levad me areha prazi harbe maod. Besides the many open cities, unwalled cities. Malahalan mukafot choma mimot Yoshua ben Nun. Afkan mukafot choma mimot Yoshua ben Nun. Just like the contrasted walled cities, the cities that are contrasted from the Prazim are from the days of Yoshua. So also the mukafot choma of Purim is from the days of Yoshua. Now the Gemara finishes off. Bishamar of Yoshua and Korcha lo amar katana dedan to let le prazi. He doesn't hold from that Gezerah Shava. That we understand. Ella Tana didan. By the way, this Gezerah Shava, I would venture to say that it's not a classical Gezerah Shava, but Chochmat HaKatuv. It's a received. It's a wise way of reading the psukim, taking into account all the issues that would come up. The reason I'm saying that is because it seems to be a Gezerah Shava between a pasuk in Navi in Ksuvim, pasuk in the Megilla, and the pasuk in the Chumash. So that's the problem. But if you can say that the psukim in Megillah Esther allude to those psukim, so that allows us to understand them. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Korcha, we understand. He doesn't hold from that drasha. Ela Tana di done my time, Elo Mark Rabbi Shimon Korcha. Why didn't our Tana say like Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha, which was a very compelling svara? But the Gemara says, my taima, you're asking what's the reason that he didn't say like Rabbi Yeshua, excuse me. Prazi. He's got that quotation marks Gezerah Shava. Meaning, we knew this. That was the previous line in the bottom of the Gemara, that Tana Didan my Taima, Yalif Prazi Prazi, and then the Gemara says, okay, we understand Rabbi Shimon Korcha, he doesn't hold from that Gzera Shava. What about our Tana? What do you mean? You just told me that he holds from the Gzera Shava. Hachi Gemara. The Gemara reformulates. This is what's really, this is our real issue. Rabbi Shimon Korcha is very clear that in Shushan, you read in the 15th. Aval Tana Didan, here's what he meant by Tana Didan, my time, Alo Amarka Rabbi Shimon Korcha. Why didn't our Tana build on Shushan, at least with regards to Shushan Avdakama? Who's Shushan going to do like? Loka Prazim and Loka Mukafin. Shushan is not like the open cities because it was a walled city, but it's also not like the walled cities because it was not Mukaf Choma, Mukafes Choma Mimos Yeshua Benun. So Shushan is in trouble. Amar Rava, V'amri Lakadi. Rava said, some say there was just, it's different cheetahs on what Kadi means, but someone said, Shani Shushan Hol V'nase Bones. Shushan is an exception because the miracle was done there. So despite the fact that the rules that were set up were Eretz Yisrael, excuse me. Even though the rules were set up based on Mukafes Chomim Melmas Yeshua Ben Nun, excuse me, Shushan is different because the miracle took place there. So there is really an exception. There are really three categories. There's Mukafes Chomim Melmas Yeshua Ben Nun, read on the 15th. There's Prasim, they read on the 14th. There's Shushan, who reads on the 15th. And it's an independent category because it was not Mukafes Chomim Melmas Yeshua ben Nun. Okay. Yeah, it reads on the 15th. Finally, the Gemara says, Bishlam alatana didan hainu dichsiv medino medina v'ir la'ir. We understand our Tana, he's got those two expressions. Medino medina lechalik ben mukafas choma, mukafin choma mimos Yeshua ben Nun, mukafas choma mimos Achashverosh. He distinguishes between Medina and Medina, different kinds of walled cities, that the walled cities of Yeshua ben Nun are chayos, and the ones of Achashverosh are not. And ir le'ir nami l'chalik ben Shushan l'sharayoros, and to distinguish between Shushan and other cities, because Shushan is independent and has a chiyuv on the 15th. Ela Rabbi Shimon Korcha b'shema medina medina l'chalik ben Shushan l'sharayoros. Ela ir lamayasa. What is ir coming to tell you? So the answer is the Gemara. Amalecha Rabbi Shimon Korcha uletana didan minecha kema diislay prazi medina lamali. He also has a problem because he holds from that Gezerah Shava. So then, what's the need for darshaning Medina? You wouldn't just sort of tack a halacha onto that. So, says the Gemara that he has a different drasha, and that's going to lead us to our next topic. But I just want to point out, so at the end of the day, what do we have? We have walled cities read on the 15th. They don't read on the 13th. They don't have their option of 14th or 15th. They don't read both on the 14th and the 15th. They don't read on the 14th. Rather, they read just on the 15th. Okay. There are two approaches in the Tanoim. Rabbi Shimon Korcha holds that when we speak about walled cities, we're talking about walled cities that are walled from the time of Shushan, from the time of Achashverosh. The opposition, the Chachamim say, we have a drasha of prazi. Okay. Now, just to point out, there's a Yerushalmi. Krofinachum amukofun choma mimos Yoshua ben Nun kornim b'chamishasar Rabbi Simon b'shem Rabbi Shimon Levi chalku kavod le'eretz Yisrael sha'isa chareva ba'osana yamim v'staloso mimos Yoshua ben Nun. Really, they would have determined the walled cities by Shushan. However, they wanted to give special honor to Eretz Yisrael because in the time the Purim story took place when there was a break in the building of the Beis Hamikdash and a break in the momentum of the Second Temple Aliyah. And so the Beis Hamikdash was not Eretz Yisrael in general was not operable, and had they said Mukafin Choma Mimos Achashverosh, so the cities in Eretz Yisrael would have been knocked out. And there seems to be a special kavod for the walled cities. Not just that they happen to be, but they're getting some special status. So that's interesting. That might very well go with an approach suggesting that that you build the halachas of Ari Mukafos Choma on the laws of the walled cities. In other words, it's a derabanan me'ein daraisa. Purim is derabanan, but it's me'ein daraisa. It borrowed a halacha category from a biblical level halacha, which is walled cities, which even have a level of kedusha with regards to some people being sent out of walled cities. Okay. Now, finally, the topic that is going to be extremely important for the discussion of outlying neighborhoods of Jerusalem, similar to Hadassa and Karem and Ramot, etc. So now, Gemara says like this: if you don't hold that there's a difference between Shushan and other cities, so then what are you going to do with that pasuk Ir ve'ir? L'drasha Hadassa, ukad Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Hadassa. There's a drasha for it, and it's like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. D'amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, karach v'chol hasamuch le v'chol hanirei nidon kekrach. A walled city, and all that are near it, and all that are seen with it, are judged like a krach, are judged by one of these cities that reads on the 15th. Ad kama, till how long? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'Tem Rabbi Chia bar Ava. Kimichamson lataveria mil. It is like from the place called what I've been calling Chamtan to Tiberia, and how much is it? A meal. Says the Gemara, lema meal. Why don't you say meal? Again, you ask ad kama, and the answer was mil. What did you have to say when the question was a distance? Why do you need two ways of measuring the distance? Chamtan l'Tiberia, mil. Just say mil. Hakogashmalan the shiura the mil kamahava kamichamsan l'Tiberia. Derech Hagav, this Mishnah tells us the shear of a meal. You should know it's the same distance as from Chamsa and L'Tiberia. Okay. Now, so we have Samuch, something that is very nearby, and Nira, that is seen with it. The Gemara revisits the original line, Krach v'chol ha-samuch lo v'chol ha-nerimo nidon kekrach. Tana, we learn, samuch afal pishenu nira, nira afal pishenu samuch. Samuch v'nira can be totally independent categories. You can have something that is samuch but not nira, and something that is nira but not samuch. And the Gemara doesn't leave us to the imagination. So, nira seen but not near is, for instance, if it's on the top of a mountain. So seen with it, yes. Yeah, seen with it, yes, even though it's not nearby. But what's a case of something that is near but not seen? It should kal v'chomer be seen. It was in the wadi. It was far down. So you would have a city below, and you have something that is nearby, but let's say situated in a place where it wouldn't be seen because of the unique terrain. Okay. If we go back to that Gemara, so the original Gemara said, just a minute, I went the wrong direction. Yeah, the Gemara said, Krach v'kol ha'samach lo, v'kol ha'nirimo, nidon kikrach. What's nearby, what's seen with it, is like a krach. Then it said, ad kama, until when? How far? Okay. Says the Gemara. Says the Rishonim, does the limitation of a meal apply to nira? So look at the Gemara. Rashi is pretty clear that when this question is asked, how far ad kama chashav le samuch, so it's very clear that the meal is defining something as samuch. So nira could be much more. That's Rashi. There's a whole slew of Rishonim that hold like Rashi. Rabbeinu Chananel, Ritva, Rashba, Rabbi Yonasan Lanil, Rabbeinu Yerucham, Riaz, the Ravan. Okay. That's approach number one. Approach number two is to say that if you look back at that Gemara, just a minute. I was slipping around, my mistake. Yeah. So the Gemara originally said krach v'chol ha'samuch lo v'chol ha'nirimo nidun kekrach, mentioning both samuch and nira. Again, samuch nearby, nira visible with the city, with the walled city. It's a meal. Now, he said that after krach v'chol ha'samuch lo v'chol ha'nirimo. So there were those Rishonim, therefore, who argue with Rashi and say that meal is a restriction that applies to nira also. Inami efshar dechi amrina vad kama am Rabbi Yirmiyah kechamsel netveria mil akula mil semahader. It's going on the whole statement of samuch afal pishenu nira and nira afal pishenu safach. Bein niremo, bein lesamach. Okay, and the Miri holds that's the Shitas Rambam also. So again, one Shita is that meal is a shear for Samuch, and Ria is a broad, much broader um, distance. Um, then there's the Ran, who says that both Samuch and Nira require meal within a meal. The Tur v'chein kfarim asmuchim lahem afilu einam nirim mahem. So that's Samuch ve'enu nira. Kigon sheim be'emek. That's like the Gemara. O shenirim mem afilu einam smuchim. That's also the Gemara. Kigon sheim bahar. That's the Gemara. Ubelvad shelo yiru chokim yoter mimil. As long as they're not further away than a meal. You see that the meal part seems to be going on the Nira. But that would imply that Samuch is even less. Now, there is a whole discussion about what exactly is Shitas Rama. Does he hold like Rashi? Does he hold like the other Rishonim? Okay, I'll leave that for now. The Shulchan Aruch paskins v'chein hakfarim anirim imahem afilu einam smuchim kigon sheim bahar. Beautiful. O shesmuchim lem afilu eino nirim imahem kigon sheim ba'emek. Beautiful. That's just like the Gemara. Ubelvad shelo yirechokim yoter mimil. The Shulchan Aruch switched the order of Nira and Samuch, and when he said Bavachu shelo yirechokim yoter mimil, L'chora, it's going on the Nira. Now, this is bringing us now to our topic, which is, why do places that are Samuch and Nira read on the 15th? Where does that come from? Again, we've seen that you can read on the 15th, even a place that's not mamish a walled city. If you're near a walled city, that's Samuch. And that definitely has to be a meal, and according to some, it even has to be, it's referring to something even closer. Then there's Nira, and we have different approaches. Does it have to be within a meal, or can it be even longer? So, what's behind enlarging the shita of Ari Mekofa, the category of Ari Mekofa's Choma, to include Samuch v'Nira? So, what this will end, I'm going to throw out three different svaras, three different possible svaras, and God willing, next week when we learn the halacha l'maisa, after walking around with the fundamentals today, so we'll see how it plays itself out. So one very simple thing to say, and everything I'm saying is presented in writing, not necessarily in this formulation, but Samuch and maybe Nira, if it's close by, is part of the city. Just like, and this is especially the case if you hold, first of all, on a natural level, the people that are right outside the city are going to be going into and going out of the city all the time. Probably their source of business, etc. Number two, if you really follow a Zecher L'Nes approach, so it might fit in very well. In general, what I've always heard was that the people, the villages around the walled city, would gather in the walled city when there was need for protection. So it ends up that those they're really part of the protection of the walled city. So perhaps Samach Nira is part of the city. Number two, it might be secondary, tafel, a different kind of a category, where something can be like we have the expression Benot Yerushalayim, which refers to the cities, the small towns that are outside Yerushalayim. That's the second approach. A third approach might account for this approach that something that is seen with the city, even though it's far away, but it's still seen with it, would read on the 15th. That's perhaps a connection, the choice of words. It is appended to the city, so it pulls out a visual line to connect it with the city. So in general, we have a din that the mukafos choma read on the 15th. The Gemara exhausts all the options and ends up that the only thing is that you're going to read on the 15th there. Like we said, not the 14th, not the 14th, and the 15th, not the 14th, or the 15th, not the 13th, the 15th. Number two, it's Mimos Yoshua ben Nun and not Mimos Achashverosh. Is this a Gezerah Shava like Limud from the word Prazi? Or is this Lechale Kovol Eretz Yisrael, to honor Eretz Yisrael, which was desolate at that time? And finally, the din of Samach V'Nira, and the Machlokas Rishonim, whether the din of a restriction of a meal also applies to Nira. That's the question. And then finally, what might be behind this? Is the Samach Nira part of the city? Is it tafel or secondary to the city? And finally, is it appended to the city? Okay, that's what I wanted to share with you.